Well, what a week it's been. Tomorrow, ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule will appear before the party's Integrity Commission with relation to his alleged involvement in the multi-million rand Asbestos roof project while he was Premier of the Free State. Also, looking back at this week, the High Court in Pretoria setting aside yet another report by Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, and still relating to court matters, the Western Cape High Court Judge President Hlophe has denied that he tried to influence the judiciary in a matter involving former President Jacob Zuma 12 years ago. And all of this against a backdrop where South Africa has officially entered a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic, as announced by Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize. Political analyst Professor Lesiba Teffo joins me now to discuss these issues and more. Professor, good morning. Thanks for speaking to us once more here on Morning Live.
Morning to you and the listeners.
So let's start with the ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule, who will appear before the party's Integrity Commission tomorrow. And this, of course, relating to his alleged involvement in that multi-million rand asbestos project in the Free State while he was Premier. What's your take on this, given that we see Zizi Kodwa quietly last week also appearing before that same Integrity Commission?
I think that is the right thing to do. And I'm happy that he himself volunteered and was not forced to do so. What becomes of the outcome thereof, it's another matter. I don't put a high premium on that because I think it has been discredited, the Integrity Committee by the very people who ought to be supporting it and to ensure that it serves them well. But that he's going there, I think, is commendable.
So, with regard to Ace Magashule's appearance, the Secretary-General of the organization before that Integrity Commission tomorrow, what do you make of that? And many people questioning whether this is even worth the time spent for members appearing before that Integrity Commission if nothing's going to happen in terms of consequences.
Yeah, well, I think it's just a theatrics. And it's just trying to alleviate the pressure that they experienced last week when they were together. It was a masterstroke on my part that they could not come up with a decision that says you will appear, and then it eases the tension, the eyes that were on their shoulders. They can enjoy a Merry Christmas knowing that that facade of unity is still there. Stretch it a little further. You are saying to from the words of the President. After that, the recommendation from the IC will go to the top six or national executive and to the working committee, and from there it will go to the branches. And that process is going to take no less than 12 months. I dare push it and say that process is going to end up in 2022 at the elective conference, because whatever they come up with must still be enshrined in the Constitution. So you've got various legal opinions, that's fine, but it gives them space for another 12 to 24 months to deal with the so-called set-aside clause, which I think they didn't process well. Out of political expediency and opportunism, they decided on that. Now it is problematic to implement. And don't make a law that you cannot implement. Otherwise, that can lead to lawlessness. That's a basic tenet of law.
But what does this say about the state of the African National Congress when they are unable to or incapable of basically sticking to their own conference resolutions? What does it say about the state of leadership within the African National Congress, the divisions within the party, and also if you would just opine on where the party finds itself right now? Is this the worst space they've ever been in, or has there been a worse time?
Two things, let me address them. One, I'm not one of those who want to project Ace Magashule as the public face of corruption. The rot in the ruling party runs so deep that it is unfair for me that you would say he must step aside, he must lead from the front. The laws of the land says we are all equal before the law. One. Two, the constitution of the ANC doesn't discriminate. It also says they are all equal before the law. You have guys in Limpopo who stepped aside and came back. Equally, same applies in KwaZulu-Natal, in the Free State, in the Northwest. So when it comes to that, it tells you that where they are, indeed, like all liberation movements, they have reached a stage where they cannot save themselves from themselves. Liberation movements, after 20 years, they stay in power by hook or by crook, and the ANC is not going to be an exception. They've reached a stage where, like Mkhante once said, maybe they should lose power and after 5 years come back, because then it will cleanse itself. The careerists and the opportunists will go because there will be no amount to benefit from, and the real, true, genuine members of the ANC will remain, and they start afresh.
Now, Professor, you mentioned KZN there in that response. And looking at what happened yesterday, the appearance of former eThekwini Mayor Zandile Gumede in court again alongside her co-accused. Now, the state, yet again, not ready to proceed with that case. And many people have questioned what this actually means, given our history, given where we come from, given the allegations that people have used state agencies to fight political battles once more. What do you make of what's happening in that Zandile Gumede case?
Look, she's no small lady, by the way. If anything, she's a very powerful lady that I think she has got a sizable chunk, both in the province and outside. And given the factions, she's also a public face, right, of a certain faction that would not make it easy for the president to assert his authority. And I'm one of those who would say, it doesn't matter whether it's a Van der Walt, a Ramaphosa, or a Lamola, as long as you have to operate within the so-called tripartite alliance, you are bound to fail. You are bound to fail. Until the day comes when we elect people on merit, and it doesn't matter which color of the T-shirt, then South Africa will continue to find itself in this situation. Madam Gumede represents what is going wrong in the party. And she's not the only one. It's about factions. But my appeal is law agencies, state institutions, stay out of politics and do the best you can. And for now, there is that hope, that sense of appreciation that the winds of change are blowing in the right direction.
But the allegation is that the charges, Zandile Gumede being brought to court, were premature because the state hasn't been ready to proceed. Why would you do that? Surely, in September, it was said that the state needed 3 more months to get their act together. They needed some audit reports to be finalized, and this has been dragging on. So, speaking to our state institutions once more, should we read anything more into what is happening here? And that, of course, is quite apart from the fact. It doesn't speak to the merits of the case in terms of Zandile Gumede's guilt or otherwise.
Look, to some extent, the past 10 years did succeed in corrupting state institutions and law enforcement agencies that we can't run away from. It's especially the NPA, the prosecution authority, they've been hollowed out of expertise. Some good men and women, they were hounded out, renounced and denounced. And what you were left with were those who were serving factional interests with minimum or no expertise at all. And I'm sensing that Batoyi is trying to build some capacity to restore at least its image and to ensure that the right things are done. Yes, I do concede that sometimes deliberately people don't do their work in order to ensure that certain cases collapse. And you make sure that they drag on, but I'm confident that we are moving in the right direction. And I'm glad you are raising the question, and I'm responding as I do, that those who are listening, just make sure, in the name of the country, not your party, not your own self, do the best you can, so that history one day can look back and say, in the toughest of times, but you still stood up and said the national constitution, the national flag was more important to you than party political interests.
Just moving away from the ANC for a moment, looking at some other news, the Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane this week had another report set aside by the North Gauteng High Court. Your view on that and the Public Protector and her tenure going forward?
Look, Ma'am Mkhwebane, for me, might be having other strengths, and indeed she can serve this country well, one way or another, but certainly not in that office. It's just too big an office for her. And she moved into immensely big boots of the then Public Protector. In all instances, in the main, her decisions have been questionable. Her application of the law has been questioned. And I had hoped that one day she would own up and say, you know what, with some modicum of dignity, let me retreat and go and do other things. But and she doesn't help her cause, by the way. The manner in which she responded to the judgment on Wednesday, that Oksalayo, what remains is that I know my findings are there and are correct. It's just that, as Hlophe said, people look at Mkhwebane and they don't look at the judgment, which already is casting aspersions on the judges, that the judges don't apply the law. They just look at who it is who is bringing the matter or who have made the findings and take a decision against it. It's unfortunate. I would hope. But having said that, there was a time when I thought it was going to be easy to get rid of her. I'm beginning to think the more these things drag, the more likely that it's going to be difficult to get rid of her. You can do it through the parliamentary process, which is the one that is going to be problematic, or it can be through legal processes, judicial process. But the numerical support is growing because of the fractions in the ANC. And even when you are going to vote, I think the test is going to be too tight to carry the day.
So just a quick one on the South African Revenue Service, because that Mkhwebane matter also touched on the SARS issue of that rogue unit. So the South African Revenue Service Commissioner Edward Kisweta sent a letter, this of course to say that the Revenue Service will no longer rely on the report of Advocate Moses Kakane of the rogue unit. And in that letter, which of course has been widely circulated on social media, it seems to say that because Advocate Kakane appeared at the State Capture Commission on behalf of former President Jacob Zuma, this also has weighed in on this position. What do you make of all of this?
Look, let me just go straight to what I think is critical in this. The story of the rogue unit, if I may call it that, and I'm not comfortable with that description, is that Gordon does own up that I was aware. And I think what the presiding officer would be interested in, was there a material benefit for him or not, or even those who were working with him? I think it was about ensuring that revenue is collected from those whose intentions are nefarious. So the good intentions were there. And that's what is critical for me. The rest is just politics. And I think to say Gordon at Zondo Commission confessed. He didn't confess. He acknowledged what we already knew that he said 2-3 years ago, that we did it in the interests of the state to ensure that we collect revenue to serve, among others, the wretched of the earth.
But a few things here, Professor Teffo. Does that mean that the end justifies the means? Because it's not about whether the unit was set up. It's about the legality around setting up of that unit. Hence, does the end justify the means? And as far as SARS is concerned, I think that Kakane report is about 5-6 years old. And if SARS has gone on to implement, some of the recommendations thereof, how do you then now, 6 years later, turn around and say, we disavow, we distance ourselves from the report? How does that work?
Look, I'm not sure if the end justifies the means. The learned judges recently pronounced, right, the judgment that we are referring to about a week or so ago. But I am not sure. I can leave it to others to decide on that one. But for me, the critical thing is, were they malafide? Did they act with good intentions in doing this, right? And if indeed they were wrong, is it so material that we would say it was criminal? Or we could say, let's amend and follow due process, because the merits of the unit is paramount. That therein, for me, lies what ought to be, what preoccupies us. It's granted them that maybe they were wrong. But would you say it was not worthwhile? Shouldn't you say, maybe let's amend it? I'm sure the court has a tendency to say, go back, we give you 2 years or 1 year to correct the process, to legitimize the process, to regularize the process.
Professor Teffo, let's leave it there because we are out of time. But of course, I just wish we had more time. I wish we could get into some of those utterances, but we cannot. Professor Lesiba Teffo is, of course, political analyst, helping us unpack some of the news stories of the week. With that, let's bring you our latest